not of the main series, and not of the Uchiha series. This is the remake of the Hyuga series, and he ain't gonna be no Hyuga. I have a really good plan for this. He's going to be Naruto's older brother. By I mean older brother, I mean like Itachi and Sasuke, basically. Itachi and Sasuke age difference, but a tad bit older. He's like Shisui's age. So he's pretty old. He's like, I'm gonna say he's about 7 when the Naruto's attack. I'm not sure how old Itachi was when he passed. So basically, he'd be in the same class as Itachi. He'd have Minato's hair and his hair color, but he'd have Kushina's eyes. He wouldn't be born with the 9 tails with him. He'd be a prodigy AF, always hanging out with Kakashi, Rin, and Obito. I'm gonna say that Rin and Obito didn't die. When he's a baby, he always loves it when Rin, Kakashi, and Obito visit. He goes, yay! And he always plays with them. And mostly plays with Rin when Kakashi and Obito are like sparring. Then about 5 years later, back then when Kakashi, Rin, and Obito used to visit, he was about 1. So we're gonna do a 5-year time skip. He's in the academy, and he's top with Itachi Uchiha. He says, then he asks a question saying like, what is the main? He says, look, I don't know a lot of questions in the academy. Let me just say this. Who is our sage of 6 paths? Christian and Itachi both say, Hagoromo Otsutsuki. He goes, wow, you two both knew. He's got the chillness of Minato and sometimes the anger of Kushina. When they get out of class, they start to talk, being friends. Then they both then for somehow they get into the 12-year-olds class. He goes, hey, now own it, the Sam flown in a samurai hat. So then they get to put on the same team. He says, and it's a 4-man team. It's Itachi Uchiha, Christian Namikaze, what's his name again? And that dude who dies from Toby and the girl. When Itachi hangs out with Izumi, Christian says, hi Itachi. He says, hi Izumi. They go, hi. And then when she offers Itachi a dumpling, he starts blushing. Christian says, Itachi x Izumi. Itachi goes, quiet, don't say that. Then they both turn away blushing. He says, you're looking at me while blushing, Itachi. I'm pretty sure I got you. He goes, So then they'd be on a team. They'd pretty much, I don't really know a lot about their team history. Until the dude dies from being, the other boy on the team dies. So when Toby attacks, he says, wait, but he would never die in this timeline, actually. But I want to say he does from a natural cause. And I just realized how Obito and Kakashi are like adults now. But I also realized how that wouldn't happen yet because the Naruto's attack hasn't happened. So they're both 5 years old, still in the academy. Then, when Christian gets home from the academy, he goes, hi Mom, hi Dad. He says, Christian, we have special news for you. He says, what is it? He goes, you're going to be a big brother. He goes, woohoo. He goes, na 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 na. Alright, look, I'm gonna say he's about 10 years old when Naruto was born, and so is Itachi. I'm gonna say Kakashi is 25. So is Obito, and so is Rin. With the Nine-Tails attack. I'm gonna say someone else steals the Nine-Tails from Kushina. Because remember, Obito wouldn't do that since Obito's still good. Now how about I do this? Obito still goes rogue, and he's still like a rogue until after. I'm gonna say Kakashi doesn't kill Rin though. I'm gonna say Obito gets there earlier and stops them. So when he says this, he goes, yeah! 9 months later, when Naruto is born, he's also there, waiting. Keeping out watch, because he's really strong. Even if he's 10, he's still strong. Then when Naruto's finally born, the masked man steps in. Christian pulls out a flying Raijin kunai and says, get back! Now! He says, the Hokage's son. He goes, Then he goes and he has Naruto in his hand. He goes, Naruto! He says, step away from the Jinchuriki. Then Christian throws a flying Raijin kunai, then grabs Naruto, throws his blanket off, and then holds him. She goes, Naruto! He goes, got him! He says, you little brat. Then he goes for a kunai strike and catches it. Then he says, then he throws back his fist and says, Kagebushi! He says, quickly take him to father. He goes, the Shadow Clone takes Naruto to Minato. He goes, yeah. Then he rushes and throws a flying Raijin kunai behind him. He turns around and goes to punch, but there's no one there. Then, when he looks around, he gets kneed right in the face. He goes, yeah. He says, eat that! Then he front flip slams his foot down on his face, but then he phases through him. He goes, what the? Then he goes for a kunai stick, he catches it, then he goes, I'm gonna say he does know the Rasengan. He goes, Rasengan! Boom! Hitting him into the wall, he goes, ugh! He goes, Kushina smiles, and so does Minato. He goes, then he goes, Katon Gokaku! Obito uses his perfect hit to snatch Naruto. But then, what he didn't realize is when Christian caught his fist, he marked him. Then he rushes towards Christian, then he teleports behind him, then he goes, a Sengun! Hitting him, saying, Flying Raijin, level 2! Hitting, he goes, argh! He says, but then, this Toby just turns into mud. Then he put Naruto, slap the paper bomb on Naruto. Minato would jump up and grab Naruto, slapping up the paper bomb, and then explode him out of there. Christian stays with his mom, blocking her with a kunai, going, he says, then he pulls out a sword ready to kill him. Then he clashes with him, going, he says, you're a real prodigy, huh? Then he appears behind him, going, a Sengun! But then he catches the Rasengan and disperses the Rasengan. He goes, dang it! Then he gets punched in the face and hits the wall. He goes, no! Then he flying Raijins again. And he goes in front of him, about to crush his mask. Then Christian gets really, really mad and then he says, hold on a minute. Then he goes to punch him. He dodges out of the way. Then he gets a flashback of Obito dodging like that. He says, you can stop hiding your true identity, Obito. He goes, how do you know me? He goes, remember me? Then he says, I remember your dodging movements. Only but Obito does that. Then he flying Raijins and pulls off his mask. He goes, then he crushes it. Then he sees that Obito's eye is actually Sharingan is purple. And it's a normal Sharingan. He says, so. Then he throws a kunai, punching him right in the gut. But then Obito dodges and then steals Kushina. He goes, dang it! Then Christian flying Raijin's home. He says, father! Then he starts to cough a little bit. He says, are you okay? He says, I use the flying Raijin a lot. He says, but he got mom. He goes, dang it. Then he flying Raijin's over, and the Ninetales is extracted. He goes, dang it. Then he summons the Nine Tails. Then Minato would go and take Kushina and take her back to the house. Then Christian pops open a drink and drinks him. He goes, I'm coming with you. Minato puts on his thing and he says, I'm coming with you. He puts his shoulder on Minato, he puts his hand on Minato's shoulder, and then they teleport to the battlefield. Then they teleport to the Nine Tails thingy. When he goes, Minato's about to get striked. Christian catches his attack and says, Father, it's Obito, but don't yell at him after this Nine Tails attack. Obito has been hypnotized by somebody, and that's why he's attacking. Most likely Madara Uchiha, because he's probably the only one. He says, Madara Uchiha's dead, though. He says, dude, it's Madara Uchiha. He's always gonna live. He says, there's no way one quick stab would have finished him. He says, how do you even know this happened? He says, books, my friend. Then he punches Obi. Then he warps them away with him as well. He goes. Then he joins in the fight with Minato, and it's really. Then Christian goes and says. Then Minato goes for a flying Raijin and defeats Christian. They both go for a father-son Rasengan. Then they both flying Raijin above him and then destroy him. The hypnotism wears off. He goes, Sensei. He goes, what happened to me? He goes, you were killed, Obi. He says, what happened to you? He says, the Nine Tails. Then the Nine Tails goes crazy. He says, we have to stop it. Then Minato would come and warp the Nine Tails to where and then he would have Christian, baby Naruto, and Obito with him. He says, Christian says, don't worry, Mom, he's no longer hypnotized. He says, I'm sorry, Minato and Kushina, for letting this happen. He goes, it's okay, Obito, you were hypnotized. He goes, okay. Then they all have to fight the Nine Tails. He says, what is a kid gonna do against me? He says, then Christian appears right above Kurama's head. Right on Kurama's head, he says, what am I gonna do, huh? Then he puts Kurama in a chokehold. He goes, what am I gonna do, huh, you stupid fox? He goes, and then he keeps on, then he's holding onto his head. Then he's losing his grip, and then he grabs onto his ears. He goes, then he pulls down on Kurama's ears, then kicks him in the head. He goes, stupid fox, why even then he holds onto his neck. He goes, he says, then Kushina with tears in her eyes says, come on, stop it, you don't need to do this, you're just a kid. He says, then he grabs a flying Raijin kunai and stabs it into Kurama. He goes, then Obito would jump in, and then go, fire style, fireball jutsu, hitting him with a fireball. The Nine Tails, then he'd get the Reaper Death Seal ready and Reaper Death Seal the Nine Tails. He goes, no, Dad! He jumps in the barrier. He's in the barrier also. Then the Nine Tails goes for an attack on baby Naruto to kill him. Naruto's already in the cradle thingy. He goes right in front. Obito's about to go and block it for his sensei since he started this, but then Christian flying Raijins then kicks Obito to the side. He goes, then he's stabbed through with Kurama's claws. He goes, then Kushina with even more tears in her eyes saying, no! He goes, as he's holding Kurama's claw. He says, then Christian pulls something from his pocket and slaps it on him. He goes, then his chakra is then he's being healed while the wound is also being healed. Then he cuts off Kurama's claw. He goes, oh! Then he cuts off all of Kurama's claw, shortens his claw so they're much harder to pierce through. Then he pulls himself out, and then his wound starts to heal from the healing tag. He goes, then he'd 8-sign seal him inside of, but then, with his other hand, Kurama stabs through Minato and Kushina, killing them. But then they give their last words to Naruto and Christian. And their final words to Christian are to protect his little brother from the villagers. because he has a feeling that these villagers are going to call Naruto a monster. He's going to see half the Ninetales is going to be half in Minato and half in Naruto. And he gives him 5 scrolls that teaches him all the jutsus that can suppress the Ninetales. He goes and says, "Yes, father." Then, the Ninetales are seen inside Naruto, and Christian is at the scene with tears in his eyes, and so is Obito. Then Obito returns to Kakashi and Rin the next day. He goes, "Kakashi, Rin, I'm sorry for what I did." He says, "What did you do?" He says, "I'm the one who caused the Ninetales attack." Christian grabs him and says, "You what?" Christian is a little scared behind Obito. He says, "Christian, get away from me." He says, "It's not his fault. He was hypnotized." He says, "Look at his eye." He says that his eye is normal. He says, "So?" He says, "Before that, his eyes were purple. His eye was purple." He says, that must mean he was hypnotized by somebody." He goes, "I'm sorry, Obito, for yelling." Christian says, "Well, I have to take my little brother home." Then holds him on a strap thingy. He's kind of like Itachi. Then, when they go to the academy, Christian walks. Then he walks by Itachi and then Naruto and Sasuke's first meeting. He goes, "Hi, Itachi." He says, "Hi, Christian. I'm sorry about your loss." He goes, "It's okay. Now I have this little guy to take care of." Then it's Naruto and Sasuke's first meet, and the first thing they do is stick their tongues out at each other, going, "Ah!" Then they stick their tongues out at each other. He goes, "Well, that's unexpected." Itachi says, "Agreed." About 5 years later, Christian and Itachi are 15, and Christian is now a Jonin at the age of 15, and Itachi is also Jonin level. He's Naruto's brother and always treats him nicely. Then a couple of more years later, Naruto is 12 years old. Christian is about, let me count the ages. So if he was 15, 5 years after the Ninetales attack, and the Ninetales attack was 13 years when Naruto actually started. So let me count. He goes, so after the Ninetales attack, he was 10. So 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So he's basically 21 years old. He goes, "Naruto, how you doing?" That means Itachi had to have been like 22. No. Fine then. He was about 8 when the Ninetales attack happened. About the same age Itachi was. So that means he'd be 19. And he defends Naruto from the dumb villagers. Let's change it up. He's in the Anbu. Then Itachi goes rogue. Well, actually not. Itachi wouldn't kill the clan. I don't want him to. Oh yeah, Christian and Naruto would also live in Minato and Kushina's house. It's Naruto's final day of the academy, and he's got pretty good chakra control. On Naruto's graduation day, Christian says, "I'll make a deal, Naruto. Tomorrow, I'll be home when you get home from your graduation, because I have a mission today." Then he rides over to the Hokage's office, asking what his mission is. He says, "Your mission," he's teamed up, he's partners with Itachi. He says, "You and Itachi's mission is to execute 5 shinobi. These elite shinobi who are really strong." He says, "Okay. Hopefully this doesn't take too long. I still have to wait for my brother's graduation." He says, "Okay." if you guys get that done, you'll probably be able to do it. When they do this, they head off on their mission going. Then when it starts, he sees the first of their targets. He throws a flying Rising Kunai, says, a Sengun! Killing him right there and then, going. He says, one down. Then Itachi activates his Mangekyo Sharingan. Well, his Sharingan, actually. Hello, Earthling. Are you an alien, Kaden? Are you an alien? Or are you something else? You must be a alien. We us Earthlings, unless you're like Stromedy or something, because a different breed. Because for some reason, Stromedy says people are humans and all that crap. He says, you are alien. Back to the what if. So, basically, after they defeat all 5 shinobi, he's back home late. Because these shinobi were hard to find. Itachi may be stronger with the Sharingan, but Christian's got Sage mode out here. Look in. Got in Sage mode, it's so much more sealing techniques. And he's got the chakra chains. But he only uses Sage mode sometimes. I'm gonna say he has half the Nine Tails in him too. But he's not really considered as a freak since he knows how to use it. And he's strong, and people do know that he is the Hokage's son. So basically, they make it back just on the time for the graduation. On time for Naruto and Sasuke's graduation. Naruto would pass, and also Sasuke would pass. Christian asks Itachi if him and Sasuke want to come over since they both passed. He says sure, and then they head over. He says, Sasuke says, Nichan, where are we going? He says, we're heading to Naruto's house. He says, why his house? He says, because his brother invited us over since you both passed. And we're going to have dinner there. He goes, okay. He says, try and get along. Do not fight you two at his house. I don't want you two embarrassing each other. Don't embarrass each other at his house. He goes, fine, Nichan. He gets a knock at the door and says, Naruto, would you mind getting the door? He goes, sure. He says, hi, Sasuke, hi, Itachi. They go, hi. He goes, where's Christian? He says, cooking up a storm. He goes, oh, he really was fond of cooking. He loved it. He looks over and says, hold! He goes, Sasuke says, what is that delicious smell? He says, this might be this. All they see is he says, Itachi, you could have invited your parents if you wanted. He says, nah, they wouldn't want to have come. He goes, alright. Then he puts down the plates and says, well, he also baked a cake. He says, I baked a cake for you guys, for your passing the exam. He says, and he also made tons of other foods. They go, this looks so good. Itachi says, I will not let you. He goes, Mangekyo Sharingan. I will not let you outdo me. Then he goes, and cooks his own things too. That goes along. He says, try. They both say, try this, try this, try this, try this, try this. Feeding this to Naruto and Sasuke. Itachi feeds Naruto and Christian feeds Sasuke it. They go, they can't, and they're like, whoa guys, stop, we're gonna eat too much. He goes, oh yeah, you have to save some room for the cake. Naruto would be kind of lonely since Christian's usually gone for his missions. What? So basically, after their time, they have a blast. And then Sasuke and Itachi go home. He goes, he says, was that fun, Naruto? He says, yeah. He says, alright, you gotta go to bed. You have to go to your thing today. Christian smiles and says, good thing I'm also a Jonin teacher. He's not actually the Jonin sensei. When they do this, they say it's Kakashi. He goes, "Oh, hi, Kakashi." Christian places a mark on Naruto's shoulder, always waiting for them, and he maybe gets a, is this an Akatsuki / Uchiha ramen party? Yeah, we having a Uchiha ramen, and Uchiha and Akatsuki ramen party. So, when Christian and Itachi find out that their brothers were on the same team, they smirk and says, just like they were. Christian says, I marked Naruto and Sasuke to make sure, in case they're ever okay, that we can just flying Raiji to them. He goes, okay. Naruto would send a message to the QB if Christian Itachi are just hanging out, training for a while. Then he gets a message from the QB. He says, "Kid, Naruto's in danger. Naruto and Sasuke are in danger." He says, "Right." He says, "Itachi, let's go." He goes, "Right." When Kakashi is trapped in the water prison and Zabuza's about to strike, a sword blocks the attack. He goes, Naruto and Sasuke say, "Nisa!" He goes, Sakura goes, "So cool." They both disappear, punching the clone, instantly destroying it. Christian then throws such a precision kunai that it misses Zabuza, but then curves lower. She says, "Ha, he missed. He's not better than Sasuke." Then the kunai curves down. Then comes in, and she says, "What was that, Sakura?" Naruto said. She goes, "Whoa!" And then Zabuza has to remove his hand before he's stabbed. He says, then Kakashi's freed. He says, "How did you two get here?" He says, Christian says, I contacted through the Nine Tails, blah 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 blah, plus, also I've marked Naruto. Then he disappears, and then he stabs Zabuza going, he goes, ugh. He says, "Listen here, buddy, you're not gonna ever hurt anyone again." Then spins his sword in him. He goes, "Gah!" And he rips off Zabuza's mask and says, "Kakashi, take the bridge builder away. I need to put this guy through some serious torture." He goes, "Right." Then he activates the QB eyes, and then Kakashi takes the bridge builder. He keeps on spinning the sword, cutting a hole through Zabuza, then cutting. Itachi and Christian put him through absolute torture in the Tsukuyomi. He goes, He says, "Well, he's dead now," but then Senbon come and he instantly uses justice. Itachi jumps in, uses his sword, and blocks all the strikes. He said, then Christian jumps up, front flip kick, slams Haku, breaking his mask. "You seem trustworthy, kid. I think you should stay. You should stay alive." He says, "I have no purpose in life. Please end me." He goes, "Wow, this kid seems depressed." Then just throws a kunai and says, "This is the hardest thing I've ever done," and then kills Haku. He goes, Then when they get back, Kakashi would recommend them for the tuning exams. When Iruka storms in, saying that they shouldn't, Christian says, "Calm down, Iruka. They are ready." He says, "I've trained them." He says, "So have I, and I've seen their abilities. And I know that they are ready." He says, "They need to learn. The tuning exams will be a big help in their step and rolls." He goes, "Fine." Then he walks away, dipping. Then he goes to talk to Obito. Then him and Obito start to spar. They go, he's really trying to fight. They're fighting really easy. He says, Then when the They go to the tuning exams place. He says, "Watch out, you guys. Tuning exams are dangerous." Christian says, "Itachi, even if they need help, we can't go help them. This is something that they need to learn from." He says they need to learn to experience true trauma like we did. Then they'll be able to be stronger. Christian says, "I still can't get over that day when he died. And that she quit becoming a shinobi. We don't want that to happen. We don't want Naruto to die, or Sasuke to die, and then Sakura just giving up on shinobi." He said he agrees, and on the second stage of the exams, everything would go pretty normal to the final exams. When Naruto needs a mentor, Christian says, "I know just who." Then someone knocks on their door. He goes, "Pervy-say!" He goes, "Jiraiya Sensei!" He goes, "Hi, it's been a while." He says, "Yeah." He says, "I come here to train Naruto for the 1 month." He says, "He's right here." He goes, "Naruto, meet Jiraiya Sensei. He's our father's teacher, aka master. He wants to train you for a month." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Can I come? I need some extra training too." He goes, "Sure." Then they all walk off. Sasuke is trained by Itachi, because he'd rather train with him. Well, that means no Raikiri. He trained with Itachi for 2 months, then he trained with Kakashi for 1 month. Well, actually, no, he trained with Kakashi for 2 weeks, then he trained with Itachi for 1 week, just to upgrade his Sharingan. And Naruto would get pretty good training. Chris would show him the summoning jutsu, biting his finger, then going, "Gamabun." Then he summons Gamabunta. He says, Hi, Mr. Gamabunta." He goes, "Hello, kid." He says, "Naruto, meet Gamabunta." Naruto says, "I keep on meeting different people today." He says, Christian goes, "He's a toad. He is a toad, not a human." Then he despawns him, and then Naruto makes a summoning contract with the toads. Then he goes, Then he summons a tiny little tadpole. Christian goes, "Eesh, jeez." Then Christian lifts up Naruto's shirt and says, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa. What is this?" He says, "Jiraiya Sensei, isn't this the 5-pronged seal?" He goes, "Wait a minute, that is the 5-pronged seal." He says, that stupid Orochimaru guy did it to me." Christian's head twitches, going, "You say who now?" He goes, "Calm down." He says, "I don't think so. This guy goes in 5-pronged seals, my brother. The next time I see that snake, I'm gonna rip out his tongue, rip out his eyes, then rip out every single limb in his body." He goes, then Christian releases the 5-pronged seal. Then Christian says, loosen up this." Then he loosens up the seal, and then Naruto goes, "Aah!" He says, "Alright, Jiraiya Sensei, get the sealing tag ready." He says, "Right," and they both get their sealing tags. Naruto rushes at Christian. Christian catches his arm and then slaps it on his head. He goes, then he misses on purpose, then kicks Naruto to the left. He says, "Come on, Naruto, control it." He goes, "Aah!" Going even more crazy. Naruto go for a giant strike on him. He catches it and goes, "Aah!" Then Naruto goes for it. Then he hits him with the other chakra going, "Aah!" He goes, "He's strong like this." He goes, "Aah!" Then he'd go for one more strike. Then Chris would hug him, saying, "Calm down, please." Then he would. He says, "Looks like we didn't need to waste a sealing tag." Then he tightens the seal up and says, "We'll try again tomorrow." And on the last day of training, they do it one more time, and Naruto can finally use the cubey-eyed form at will. He says, good. Then Christian is at the top where no one can see him. In Naruto's match, Naruto would win. Christian's clapping from above, going, good job, Naruto! The next match is Tamara versus Shikamaru. Tamara would win like she did in canon last time. He goes, well, that Shikamaru is smart. I can tell how he's Shikaku-san. He's just talking to Kakashi and Obito and Itachi, saying that he has a feeling something's gonna go wrong. With Sasuke versus Gaara, Gaara goes crazy. He says, should I do it? When Gaara goes into his little sand thing, then he goes crazy, and then the sand trio jumps in, and Christian flying Raijin's down, saying, whoa, you think you can just abandon this stadium? He says, but he's going crazy, we have to calm him down. He says, that's why I'm here. He says, get him back. Baki says, there's no way I'm letting you near my student. He puts a kunai to his throat, saying, you're gonna let me do this, or you want him to go insane. He says, good luck then. No one's ever calmed him down before. He just killed until he finally calmed down out of it himself. He says, hey, what are you mad about? He goes, blood. He says, so, all of us have been hurt before. Not just you. I've been hurt with blood. He's been hurt with blood. Everyone here has been hurt with blood. It doesn't really matter. He says, calm down. Then he creates it. Then he puts down a tetragram seal. He's putting another seal so then Gaara feels calmer. He says, there we go. Good. Now calm down and go give your friends a hug. Go give your friends Tamari and Kankuro a hug. They go and he hugs them. He says, I'm sorry. He goes, it's okay, Gaara. The seal wasn't strong enough, so Chukaku's chakra leaked out. So, after a while, then Orochimaru would put the Hokage with throat. Christian would put a sword to Orochimaru's throat, saying, then activates the QBI, saying, he activates Sage Mode X instead of the QBI, going, then he appears behind him, saying, no Sage Mode. He goes into QBI. He says, well, I did say a promise. He goes, I did say this. The next time they were attacked by Orochimaru, I destroy him. Then he grabs Orochimaru by the neck and then flying Raijin to the roof. He goes and throws Orochimaru with an angered look on his face, with a death stare. He goes, and goes, you should have never went near Naruto in the first place. Then charges up a Rasengan and says, time for you to die. Then he disappears in front of Orochimaru, saying, Rasengan! Hitting him in the face with a Rasengan. He goes, oh! Then Sanford puts up a barrier so then none of them can get out, and Orochimaru summons the first and second Hokage. He goes, how cute. Then they rush at him, shooting their jutsus at him. He goes, burst style mud wall! Blocking their attacks. Tobirama would appear behind. He'd grab Tobirama and break his leg. He goes, ugh. Then he'd grab him by the neck. Then he'd rip off his arms. Then he'd put a paper bomb between the two of his arms that he ripped off. Then when they regen, they immediately explode off. Then he goes, fire style, fireball jutsu. Then he jumps to the left, going, Rasengan! Defeating Hashirama, knocking him out. Then he'd knock out Tobirama too. He said, then Orochimaru kicks him in the face. He goes, you've made the biggest mistake. Then he says, Kurama, gather Sage Chakra. He goes, then he activates QB Sage Mode. Not Biju Sage Mode, QB Sage Mode. There's three different things. Biju Sage Mode is Ninetales Chakra Mode, is KCM2. This one is QBI's plus thing. The thing that we basically used as not against Nagato. He says, and punches him straight in the face. He goes, damn you! Then he gets into the barrier, shocking himself, going, ah! Damn that barrier. Then it's time. Orochimaru pulls out his Kusanagi sword. Christian pulls out a flying. Then Orochimaru would summon a giant snake. Manda. Christian goes, summoning jutsu. And then summons Gamabunta. He says, excuse me. And then he also summons Gama Hero, and they also one with like the electric racket thingy dude. And then they fight and defeat Manda. He goes, then they all return. He says, now. Then he jumps up in the air and punches Orochimaru down. Then Orochimaru pulls out his Kusanagi sword for real. Christian says, Rasengan! He pulls out a flying raging codename and says, Rasengan! Then he rushed towards him, throwing it. Orochimaru would dodge it in slow motion, basically. He'd go to stab him. Jiraiya sees Minato in him. He says, do it. He says, I've got your body now. Then he disappears and goes flying. He says, Rasengan! Hitting Orochimaru with the flying Raijin level 2. He goes, well, the Sage boosted Rasengan, Sage QB boosted, Orochimaru is dead. And he kills him. Then the barrier's released. He goes, Ichione. Then after the barrier's released, he goes, creates a giant fireball that explodes the barrier. Then he goes and grabs one of the Sound 4 and then stabs them through the chest, then punches them right through their stomach. He goes, then he kills one by one, killing the Sound 4. He goes, don't ever mess with the Leaf Village again. Then he flying rations out to Jiraiya. He says, you actually did it. You actually killed Orochimaru. That is amazing. Not even I could do that. Then Christian smirks and says, you know what that means. He goes, no, I've been surpassed. He goes, that's right. He goes, hey, Godzilla, I ain't tripping. Then he says, all we have to worry about is getting rid of those giant snakes. Then Christian goes and cuts off a giant snake's head. He goes, ah! He says, it's the fourth Hokage's son. And he throws a flying rising kunai, cutting off another head, then a couple of more heads. And he goes, defeating all of them. They all fall to the ground and then poofing. He goes, Then he appears to Naruto saying, are you okay? He goes, yes, I'm okay. Why do you worry so much? He says, because it was my duty to protect you. Given orders by our parents. Then Naruto gets a little bit sad and then he says, can we go home for a minute? He says, can we go home? He says, sure. Then he's flying racing somebody. He says, what did you want to talk about? He says, who were our parents? Christian contacts Hiruzen and says, should I tell him? He says, keep it a secret still. Keep it, but leak a little bit more details. He is, okay. He said, Christian appears and says, our parents were great. Our father was a great shinobi. Very strong. And our mother was a great kunoichi who was super nice. They were both all super nice, but Mom could get pretty angry at sometimes. He tells them how the reason why he's so attached to Naruto is because when he was little, he was the first one to hold him. Besides the nurses. And you gave me a smile when that. Before Obito came and grabbed you and put a paper bomb. He says, Obito did that? He says, yes, but he was hypnotized, so don't go getting mad at him. He says, I've got to do this. He says, you gotta promise you won't tell anyone any of this, but we are the fourth Hokage's children. He goes, whoa, cool! Christian says, but then Christian remembers something. Christian randomly goes, Christian body flickers and goes to the graveyard, digging up something. The bodies of Minato and Kushina, and picks them up. Then he brings them down. He says, yeah, what are those? He says, these are our parents' bodies. He says, then he goes, copying the hand signs that Orochimaru did. Going, inorganic reanimation. AKA reanimation. And puts them into the things. He says, tomorrow they'll be ready to come out. The next day, he'd go, Itachi would knock on the door. He says, please go get it, Naruto. I'm trying to do this. He goes, okay. He says, hi, Itachi. He says, is Christian there? He says, yeah, he's doing something now. He says, it's very important. He says, okay, let me see what he's doing. He says, he sees Christian doing hand signs. He says, are you practicing a new jutsu? He says, yeah, you could say that. He goes, and finally finishes the last answer saying, summoning jutsu reanimation. He says, wait, you're reanimating someone? He says, yep. Then reanimates Minato and Kushina. She goes, Christian? How are we still alive? How are we back alive? He says, reanimation jutsu, as you see by your coffins. He goes, you guys can only be alive for a certain amount of time, but I will find some way to bring you back. He says, that's why, he says, Naruto! And they run up to hug him. He says, has your brother been treating you well? He says, he treats me the best. He says, but sometimes he's not home all the time. He's usually not home, though. He goes, I have missions. He says, well, did you get into the Anbu? He says, more than that, I'm a freaking Jonin. Even though I am in the Anbu, though, yes. He says, I'm so proud of you. He says, and Naruto's close to being Naruto's a Genin. He says, and we also trained with Jiraiya Sensei. He says, good. He says, you guys will be here for about 1 week before you guys have to get sent back. He says, then I'll try and find but in that time I'll try and find a rebirth jutsu. He looks in one of the books in their rooms because he just bought random books. He says, he looks at books of jutsus and sees Rine Rebirth. He can bring back anybody. Then he goes, no, that's too risky. I wouldn't want to sacrifice someone's in Uzumaki's eyes to try and get it. Also, you have to be the reincarnation of the Sage's Sixth Path, and I'm not it. Then, on the final day, he finds a jutsu that says, called Rebirth Jutsu. He says, it takes up a lot of your chakra. It takes up a quarter of your 75% of your chakra. You only have a quarter of your chakra left, and you need massive amounts of chakra and chakra control. He says, I have all of that. He goes, Mom, Dad, please stay there. Stand still. They go, okay. He goes, Millions of hand signs later, about 10 minutes later, they go, are you almost done? He says, yep, almost done the hand signs. But then Naruto gets called, and gets a knock at the door. He says, oh my god, then it's Sakura and Sasuke. She says, oh my goodness, Lord Fourth? He says, hello, are you one of Naruto's teammates? He says, yes, I'm Sakura Haruno, and bows down. He says, no need to be so formal. He says, don't move, I'm trying to do this. He goes, sorry. He says, what are you doing? He says, a jutsu that's gonna work. He says, rebirth. He says, ninja style, ninja art, rebirth. Then puts his hands on Mito Kushina's face, on their heads, and then goes. Then Sakura says, I rapidly sense your chakra levels draining. He says, it's fine. He goes, and when he's finally done, he falls down and goes, yeah. Then Minato and Kushina are back to life. He says, wait, we're back? Christian goes, he says, Kurama may have some chakra, I'm really drained out. He goes, sure. He gives him tons of chakra and replenishes him right back. He goes, there we go. He says, well, we're back to life. And Naruto goes, yeah, I get to have my parents back. Yay. He says, Father, would you like to take back his Hokage? He says, yeah, I'd love to be Hokage again. Christian calls Hiruzen to the house, and Hiruzen, yeah. He says, what do you need? Do you need your allowance? He says, no. I'm giving you vacation forever. He says, what do you mean? He says, we found a replacement for the Hokage. He says, aka the fourth Hokage be back. Me and Tobo. He says, my dad's back. He says, I used a jutsu to bring him back. He says, no, this has to be some kind of dream. He goes, nope. Then he smacked him in the face to make him think. He says, why would you do that? He says, because he thought it was a dream, so obviously you have to pinch him or slap him in the face. So I did the second option. He says, good, it's not a dream. Minato, I'm glad to see you're back. Minato says, I'm glad to see you back too, Lord Third. Then he says, here, you are back as Hokage. He says, I'm going to live as a great-grandpa to my grandson. He says, you have a grandson? He goes, yes, Konohamaru Saratobi. He says, yeah, I know him. He goes, oh, okay. He says, well, I'm going to go to my room. Bye.